I was a real goody-goody.
I don't think you were a goody-goody, but you were better at not getting caught. We always used to try to stop you from mucking out because you had so many more horses to ride. And if you mucked out, it meant we'd be there later and we wanted to go to the pub. And
You've always had big boobies, Justine.
oh, God, I know.
But I have too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Welcome to Talk Horse.
I'll gallop through the highs and lows of equestrian life.
I'm Pippa Funnell. I've been eventing most of my life now, and I'm an author of a series of children's books, Pippa's Ponytails. And of course, I love everything to do with horses.
And for the second week in a row, I'm not Tristan Phipps. I'm a very old friend of Pippa's, an ex-5-star eventer and a former housemate of Pippa's. And like Pippa, I also love everything to do with horses.
So saddle up and join our equestrian community. And let's talk horse. Justine, thank you so much for coming on this episode. Saving my neck, really, because our friend Tristan, I say the second week running that he's unable to do the podcast, but obviously we're recording 2 episodes in one day. So Tristan is still stuck in Hong Kong. I think he might actually even be in the air at the moment, but thank you for stepping in. And you were going to be our guest, but unfortunately you're not going to meet the handsome young man from Made in Chelsea.
I know. My children are very disappointed, or will be when they find out, but it's still lovely to see you.
Justine and I go back many, many years, right from, well, I don't even like to say when, but we lived together for, 6 years, was it?
I think it was 5 or 6. My memory's going, but yeah.
So I'm a little bit nervous about some of the stories that might come out.
I've got some good ones, I'm sure, as will you have too, yeah. Yeah.
But it's great to have you, and I always feel with you, I might not see you for years and years and years. And as soon as we see each other, it's like we were with each other yesterday.
Absolutely. I love my little trips down to Surrey. And we just slip into that lifestyle again.
Right, Justine, as a little thank you for coming on the episode and being thrown in at the deep end, we've got a little bag of goodies for you. A little bit of Talk Horse merchandise, which I haven't actually seen yet. So for the listeners, we're going to have to describe what Justine's saying. And if you want to see, you'll have to look on YouTube. So the Talk Horse merchandise, a nice green rug.
Is that one of them?
So under the rug, we have very nice Talk Horse.
That's good. That looks like that might be my size.
White.
So
that's the front. Sorry, I got it the wrong way around.
Oh, very good.
I think it's my size too.
Yeah, I like that.
So there we go. That's something you can.
I like the little horsey feet.
You won't.
I do like the little horsey feet.
They're pretty good,
aren't they? I like that. Yeah.
Now I know you're always wanting to stop for a cup of tea.
Absolutely.
Black and white mug for anyone listening.
It's a good size mug too.
We have an orange mug. We've actually got a whole set of mugs.
Fantastic. Could I have an orange one? Because that's my cross-country colours.
At least they're not stained inside yet.
No, not yet.
Most of my mugs have 2 stains inside.
These are fab.
Then, I think for all the family, because you've obviously got...
Several.
How many? You've got 3.
3 children,
3 children.
Yeah.
A sexy... Well, not sexy, but it's just cool.
Talk horse.
Cap,
they're good.
Cap.
I'm clinking.
Actually, I might. Can I? Hopefully, the producers will let me have one of these.
I've got a hair clip. It won't sit on my head.
So anyone, we now have a black baseball cap with Talk Horse written on the front.
I like that.
God, this is like Christmas.
Does this mean look, it's got its little feet jumping a fence at the back. I like that.
And then...
I've got a horse that shape.
This is something for Tristan. A hoodie.
Does he like a hoodie?
Very, very smart hoodie.
That is good. I like that.
Black hoodie. Tristan, if you were here, you'd be having this.
Yeah.
So if you want a rubber bank, this is the perfect hoodie for you. And then a very, very nice rug at the bottom. In the Talk Horse colours. So... anyone who's interested in any of these, beautiful mugs, amazing baseball caps, bank robbing hoodie, skin tight white t-shirt. You can get it in the talkhorse.shop.
I like this.
Full detail in the podcast description.
So I like them all. But I particularly would like the sweatshirt with Tristan in it, please.
Tristan, are you watching? Let me officially introduce Justine Ward, née Ryder. Great first maiden name. But Justine and I go back a long way. Justine worked with me in Norfolk for the most amazing lady, Ruth McMullen, who I owe my career to. And we had many, many special years. Justine helped me enormously, didn't you?
Yeah.
And we had so many laughs. We lived together. And since then, she's very happily married, got a wonderful family now.
Yeah.
And quite recently, you came back to eventing.
I did, yes.
At the age of?
Well, it was 3 years ago, so I'm rubbish at maths, but I would say 52. Yes.
So for any of you young ladies out there that are thinking...
never have heard of me. Who the hell is this
No,
woman?
I was just saying, if you're thinking, are you too old to start up competing again? Justine is your proof.
Definitely not
There's
too old.
a whole career in front of you still.
Absolutely. But yes, it was many years ago we met, and got lots of funny stories.
Well, I think some of them we don't need to hear, but let's just go back to before you came to Ruth's in Norfolk.
Yeah.
So take us back to your Derbyshire days and where it all began with your love affair with ponies and horses.
Horses, yes. Well, yeah, I mean, I started riding at 5. My sister was obsessed with ponies, and my grandparents bought us a pony. A very naughty one. Seemed to have a theme with naughty horses. And yes, and I was just dragged along every weekend. And age 6, I suddenly got the bug. But where my sister wanted to stroke it and pat it and look after it, I just wanted to ride and gallop and have fun and have lessons. So I used to work in a local riding school at weekends to get free lessons. And just the love of competing started from an early age, and I was very lucky to ride some of the ponies at the riding school I went to. And then I carried on riding until I was 16. I left school and got a job, a YTS scheme with a girl. No,
Youth training scheme.
Yeah,
back then.
yeah. They don't do those anymore. With Kerry Dakin, who used to be the head girl at Ruth's, didn't she? And she said I could either have started working for her, but she was relocating to Norfolk, and I could either have 3 months off or she could send me to Switzerland for some training with a dressage rider. And I went to Switzerland, and it was a very snowy year, and Ruth McMullen came out for a week's holiday because she was snowed in Norfolk. I don't know whether you can remember that.
That was to someone called Janice
Shumperlin. Yeah. And while I was out there, I met Ruth. And I was coming back to Norfolk to work for Kerry, and she was...
Working for the Podmores?
Yes, that's it. And Janice was lovely. I broke some horse in for her. She really liked me and rated me. And she said, Ruth said, where Justine, if you really like this girl, where she's going, it's going to be a very harsh environment. But they promised me rides. Anyway, I did go there. It was quite a harsh environment. Janice, bless her, would have had me back to work for her, but I desperately wanted to work with eventers. And so she very kindly phoned Ruth up, and Ruth said if I could pass my driving test, I could go there as a working pupil. And I think I took Ben's job because he was leaving. Ben Case.
Ben Case,
yeah.
Who now is a trainer.
Yeah.
So I can... Yes, he trains racehorses and... worked with me. Ruth's setup was all about having youngsters there training.
Yeah.
She was the most wonderful mentor and trainer.
Yes.
And she was known, she was in her day, she was a very, very, she was at the top of her game in the showing world, but she was known throughout the horse world. She trained the the great late Caroline Bradley on the flat.
Yeah.
She's trained many top people in the showing world. She's trained people in the dressage world. And her whole way with horses was absolutely
Amazing.
unbelievable. And we learnt so much from there, didn't we?
Feel. You know, Ruth's feel for horses was just unbelievable. It was really quite inspiring to watch. And how she taught us, you know, it was, she just knew almost what we were feeling as a rider. She was just, I mean, I've got goosebumps thinking about it because she is amazing. And it was a lot of fun. It was hard work. We had a lot of horses. You had a lot of horses to ride.
It was hard work. And in those days, we were based at Little Palgrave Hall in Norfolk, near Swaffham.
Just a mile up the road from me now, where I live now.
Yeah, where you still live. And it was a great big house on the top of a hill. No, there was one Aga in the whole house.
No central heating.
And a fire if we lit it.
Yes.
If we lit it.
Yes.
And I know there's so many stories that Ruth would probably be really upset if we told them all, but there have been stories of when we were, don't you remember, in the kitchen and we'd be trying to catch the mice under the mugs as they were running around the kitchen.
And the cat used to bring in all the dead animals. I went away for a rare weekend off, and when I came back, you'd obviously had a party and they'd put all my underwear in the deep freeze.
Oh, God. We did have some...
We had a lot of fun. We had a lot of chilblains. I do remember that. But we did have a lot of fun. Can you remember the time when we went to the pub and we came back and Adam's friend just got up and walked out with the TV?
So we better just explain. So Ben Case was there for a year. As I said, he's a trainer. He's now a trainer. And his older brother... I formed a very special relationship with, and I was with Adam for 3.5 years. And the Case family, his parents, Amanda and Robert Case, they were like a second family to me, and I would always used to escape and have really nice...
Large gin and tonic there. You always
large
get
gin
and tonic.
Delicious meals.
Yeah.
And you struck up a friendship with Charlie Ward, who you are now...
married to, have been for 30 years,
30 years. And we and Ruth lived in the house with this poor Ruth.
Was she in a house full of sort of 7, 16, 18-year-olds?
Yeah, Tina,
Yeah.
Well, at that stage, we obviously got a bit older and we used to do terrible things. If new people came, I remember when anyone new came, especially when the boys were there, Ben Case and there was Richard Alders, if anyone new came, it used to be a thing that they were stripped of their clothes. And we had a trolley called Jemima Trolley, which used to wheel the hay bales, and we used to wheel feed and hay around and shavings round. And the newbies all...
Clothes were escorted around.
Well, the clothes would come off and they were tied to the Jemima Trolley.
Oh, I escaped Jemima Trolley, but my underwear did end up in the deep freeze. I do know that.
But those were the days. But anyway, it was a very, very special time. And then, well, I must actually, you should be answering the questions because I'm now getting verbal diarrhea thinking of old memories.
Absolutely.
But
there's a lot actually. Charlie and I feature in your autobiography with that very silly story when we overslept. We weren't meant to be going out. You'd got an event the next day. And we promised Ruth we weren't going out, but we were just going to nip to the pub for a quick drink. But you went to a ball and I went to stay at Charlie's, and you were meant to be picking me up at 3 a.m. and you couldn't wake us up. You were lobbing stones at the window. And when we finally got back to the yard...
Because we didn't have mobile phones in those days, so I couldn't ring you to say, Justine, where the hell are you?
And Ruth was already up. So we devised this plan that I stayed outside in the stable and you went in and still in your clothes from the night before and said, we were so worried about oversleeping.
Not my ball dress, not my evening dress, but I was in what I'd left in,
And you told Ruth that we were so worried about oversleeping that we got up an hour early.
So we did. And Ruth to this day had no idea that we'd both been out on the town.
And hadn't been to bed. Yeah.
So no, we had a lot of fun. And I remember very fond memories how you and I used to, I think probably we always had fun, and we were very chatty with David Fuller, the farrier.
Yes.
And so he always used to come to us last, and
The end of the day.
and we used to sit helping him with the shoeing and sitting on the banks while the horses were being shod, the stable banks, on the straw banks, probably until about 11 o'clock at night.
Absolutely. Yeah.
When we talk now of hours, the hours people work now, there's absolutely no comparison.
No, because we'd start every morning at 7. Often before if we got a busy day, but we'd often end up out there still till 10, 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah, I mean, it was long days. And
I was thinking about this the other day.
I never...
We weren't forced. Half of it was because we were left to manage our own time, weren't we?
But we all had this passion, but I think we also had so much respect for Ruth.
Yeah.
And we all realised how lucky we were to be
there
in her regime and to learn from one of the best.
Yeah.
Or if not, in my mind, the best.
Yeah. Well, I pinched myself that it was just a fortuitous trip to Switzerland that I met her. Because I would never have, my path would never have crossed with her. And it was, to have that opportunity was amazing, absolutely amazing.
If you hadn't have gone to Switzerland, you wouldn't have met Charlie, you wouldn't have had your 3 kids.
No, absolutely.
You wouldn't have gone to Ruth. And that's where life is full of crossroads or T-junctions, and you think, do I go this way or do I go that way? And sometimes we don't realise actually that one simple decision or that one little decision we think is irrelevant can be the whole pathway to our life.
Absolutely. Like I say, it was hard work, but it taught us a lot. I do remember we all had set stables and we always used to try to stop you from mucking out because you had so many more to ride. And if you mucked out, it meant we'd be there later and we were all off to the pub or wanted to go to the pub. And you were very, very disciplined and you'd ride. So we'd be like, no, we'll muck yours out, Pippa. We'll muck yours out.
Just get riding quickly. We had so many different types of horses.
Yeah.
So Ruth was known for whether people used to send racehorses to break.
Yeah.
We'd have show ponies. We would have hunters.
Yeah.
We'd have event horses. I mean, I remember there was a couple of young riders that you would train there, and they were at boarding school, and I always used to get a bit frustrated because, especially in my early days, because I used to sort of have to do all the fitting work and work away and get their horses ready for the events, and they came out of school and their horses off they went competing, and the hard graft was sort of done at home. But
I remember the first horse I broke in was one of Mrs. Raleigh's cobs, and the second horse was, what's his name? The racehorse that was by Dawn Run or Deep Run the stud fee was like £30,000. So there was one extreme to the other.
One of Jim Haggis's.
That was it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's where, to me, we had so much invaluable experience of riding all different shapes and sizes. So, I think a lot of the youngsters today don't serve the apprenticeship like we served. I'm not saying they miss out, but I do think they miss out on that all-round knowledge that we gained from Ruth's experience, but the experience of learning how to produce young horses, but not just young horses that were suitable, because some, as I said, they were all shapes and sizes.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's also, I think, when you have that big variety, a cob or a racehorse or thoroughbred or a 15-2 or a 17-2, you and the feel, you've spoken about the feel and getting to know the horses, them individually. Having that variety is just invaluable.
So then the head girl left, Jill Mason, Jill Mason now, she was Gillian Hardacre, and she fell in love with the owner of the property, Jeremy Mason.
So we were kicked out.
No,
we were bridesmaids.
We were gorgeous.
Oh God, we were bridesmaids. I've got a picture somewhere of it. It's on my fridge actually.
So from there, we left the great big, amazingly beautiful farmhouse.
Yeah,
and then we went to. We were let free because we then
had our own cottage.
Little cottage.
Yeah.
semi-detached
Yeah.
cottage, and Ruth finally had her own house, so it didn't have to live with all of us. And then the next sort of 4 years of my time in Norfolk, our time together, living together.
Yes.
And your romance continued with Charlie.
It did, yes.
I was with Adam, and I know I always, like at school, I was the one slightly that thought of some of the bad ideas, but actually I was a real goody-goody and I didn't like getting into trouble.
I don't think you were a goody-goody, but you were better at not getting caught.
But
I think
you were naughty.
I was naughty, yes. And I also didn't seem to mind if I got caught. So, yes. I do remember that, you're probably going to edit this out, but I do remember that some of us smoked at that time.
We all smoked.
Yes. But I smoked, and everybody was petrified of smoking in front of Ruth. And I didn't, because I'd met her in Switzerland and I was already smoking. So I smoked in front of her until you all put the fear of God into me. But I do remember, because she used to smoke quite a lot.
I did.
And I didn't. I just used to smoke in the evening socially. And I do remember Ruth taking me to one side and basically giving me a bollocking and saying that I was encouraging you to smoke.
Well, I think you were.
I did not. You were practically chain smoking, and I'd have about 5. But it was only because I smoked in front of her that she thought I was the bad influence.
I think you were a bad influence. So, yes, and I do remember there were a few nights when the neighbours in the they used to complain about the noise, and I didn't like it when they got upset, so I would do it. And it was always you and Charlie making the noise.
Can I also say this is the giant dildo story, isn't it?
I don't know whether we can say this story. I'm going to have to say this story now you brought it up. So
somebody bought it you as a joke.
Yeah, so actually the brother of Simon Brooks Ward, who this whole Talk Course podcast he's the brainchild of the podcast, and his younger brother. Anyway, it was my 18th birthday at Horse of the Year show, and Nick thought it'd be highly amusing to send someone out to Anne Summers to buy Mrs. Funnell. Well, I wasn't Mrs. Funnell then, I was Pippa Nolan. To buy her something for her 18th birthday, of which they came back. I hope there are no youngsters listening to this podcast.
The biggest. Yeah.
I wouldn't even be able to find batteries that big.
No.
So anyway, this lived in the house.
It was a conversation starter.
It always was. It was highly amusing. And yes, Charlie had some friends, didn't he? And I was upstairs and I was woken up by a loud...
quite late or early in the morning.
And I was fast asleep, but I was woken up by a loud... Well, I was already awake from the noise that you were making to a very loud explosion.
Yeah.
As one of Charlie's friends had thrown this giant...
With the batteries and a lighter onto the fire.
Onto the fire, and it exploded.
At which point you...
I had a big sense of human failure, not because it was the end of my giant dildo.
No, it's just because we kept you up.
It was because I was more worried about the neighbours. So I physically
You threatened to phone the police and you threw out the 2 boys, but Charlie and I were obviously upstairs, and Charlie ran down the stairs, I do remember this, clutching his clothes.
And I chucked him out.
And you and I were having an argument at the top of the stairs.
You telling me to stop being such a prude. Anyway, funnily enough, this is actually Talk Horse.
Yes.
This whole episode is about Talk Horse. So back to the horses. I obviously, got to the stage. The first few years I didn't have many. I had my horse that Ruth owned, Barnaby.
Yeah.
And then I got riding more and more when I was breaking them, because I was the mug that didn't mind sitting on the young ones.
Yeah.
And then obviously when we moved to the other yard, we got busier and busier, and then you started to ride a few more.
Yeah, I got a few more to event, And then we had that a lovely girl that used to come with her horse, the Bullet, who was very naughty, very tricky, basically when he got on him, he used to bark and panic. And she, unfortunately, every time she'd fall off, and she ended up breaking her wrist and her shoulder. And I do remember one day you were meant to be riding him, and you went to put the dressage saddle on, and can you remember he threw himself on the floor?
some young horses, he had a bad experience when he was younger.
Yeah.
And
Getting on him was always an issue. He was petrified of you getting on him. But I sort of got on quite well with him and started competing him.
I was riding too many horses. I didn't have time to spend half an hour trying to get on him
No.
each time.
Well, it used to take about an hour and a half to catch him, didn't it? So I had a few. I had one that Ruth bred sometime, can you remember?
Yeah.
I was just starting to have a few more to ride and loving it. And I was getting on well with Bullet. And then that was sort of coming to the time when you were with William and you left, didn't you? And I then...
Gosh, I can't remember that far back. Yes, probably.
I think you left just before me. And then I left... Charlie's parents had been given Bullet because he was so tricky. And they ended up giving Bullet to them, and they said, would I like to compete him? And then so I carried on competing and working around a livery yard, and I did well. Bullet ended up coming third at Burley many years ago. Amazing. That goes back as well, though, to what you've talked about a lot. It's that relationship with the horse, isn't it? Because on paper, Bullet wasn't a classic 5-star horse.
Well, it's like Barnaby.
Exactly. I mean, Barnaby was a pony, wasn't he? You know, he was not very big. It was the same height as Bullet, 15.2.
He was my first horse that I had as I was 14.
Yeah.
Through Pony Club.
Yeah.
And he took me from Pony Club all the way to... Yeah.
And he was quite quirky, and not on paper you wouldn't think they'd ever do what they do. But I think a lot of that is down to that feel and that relationship you build with them, because, you know, Bullet had a heart of gold, and we ended up building up a good relationship.
Of trust.
Yeah, exactly. So he was amazing.
So going back to... Well, I'm not going to go back to how you came across Billy Brodie, because then, obviously, you've had three
children, lovely children,
who are now pretty much grown up.
Yeah, one's getting married this year.
Oh my God!
Yeah, Tilly's getting married. It's very exciting. So yes, they're 26. Oh God, she's going to kill me now. Is she 27?
Yeah, he's just...
God, she's going to kill me. 27, 25, and soon to be 20. And so they've grown up. And I decided when Maddie was just about coming to leave school, I decided, do you know what, I want to compete again. And I'd saved up some money, and, you know, looking around at horses is a nightmare. And, you know, it's trying to find something that I wanted. And I obviously know you and William, and I know the care and attention that you put into all your horses and the stud. And I thought, that's it, I'm going to buy myself a Billy horse.
So I will just step in here, because then I remember you kept on bidding on all these various different horses, and I was ringing up saying, Justine, that one won't suit you. That one will. Stop bidding on that. So she's bid on something that I know won't suit you. And I'm like thinking, oh no, I hope someone else is going to bid on it, because Justine's going to be stuck with a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old that's not going to be the most suitable for you.
Well, it was, I mean, at one point I was the winning bidder on 2, and I started to panic, because I hadn't told Charlie I was bidding.
And you hadn't read the T&Cs.
No, and when I read the T&Cs, I was like, well, nowhere does it say I can pull out. And I remember you phoned up and said, are you going into dealing? And I was going, oh, Pip, I'm in a panic. I can't afford both. And you said to me, don't worry, that one, don't bid on that one anymore. I don't think it's an eventer, and I think the other one will go for more money. And luckily, they both went for more money, thank God. And then the next auction was for 3-year-olds, but they were all unbroken. And I thought, I'm too old to break another one in now. And actually, it was Jill Mason that said, don't be silly, get one, bid for one if you like it. You can always pay to have it broken in. And I do remember sat, and I started to bid for Brodie. Particularly liked him. There was another mare, but I liked Brodie more. And I started to bid for him, and then I stalled a bit. And you phoned me up and you said, don't stop bidding. He's lovely. I've seen him in the stable. He's lovely. And I did. And I won him. And then I panicked, thought, oh my God, I've got a 3-year-old. And I had a conversation with you and said, is there any chance your chap can break him in? And you very kindly spoke to William, and he did. And so I bought him and I hadn't seen him. And I didn't see him for another 2-3 months, I think.
And then you came down.
Came down to stay.
Was that the time you came down to stay with Charlie and you behaved rather badly?
Yeah. Well, that's one of the times I came down. That was actually...
Or her husband behaved.
No, that was the time that Charlie behaved badly. It was when I came down...
Too much
time.
Alcohol?
Well, William got Charlie on the whiskey. And I do remember this. Charlie, I snore a bit occasionally. And I'd obviously had quite a bit of wine and I was snoring. So Charlie got up and went into the spare room with the 2 single beds. And I woke up in the middle of the night and thought, oh, where's my husband? And I went back and I could see these 2 feet sticking out the end of this bed. And thank God I didn't get into bed with the 2 feet because it was William. Because he'd gone in the spare room as well because you were snoring.
So we had Charlie and William
in the room. But Charlie was very ill in the night. Yeah, it was chaotic. I do know that Charlie couldn't eat for about 3 days after.
Did we have Billy Mazette then?
Charlie, obviously, while we were down there, had a conversation with William because we'd just set up we've got our bloodhound pack. He said, if ever you have anything that, it doesn't want to show jump or isn't, or is coming to the end of its career or, it wants to change a career, we'd love to have one and maybe sell it, as a hunter.
And with Mosette, so this, just to explain, he was, I wrote him, I produced him and I absolutely loved him. And then he was sold abroad and I think it was all right for a bit, but I think he was actually basically put in too many awkward situations too many times, lost a lot of confidence. So we ended up having him back and basically he had lost a lot of confidence that he basically wasn't going to make a top jumper and we're very realistic. We don't want to, they're big horses. We don't want to, you can't force it and we didn't want to.
Yeah.
And that's when we had this conversation and realised it was much fairer on the horse to give him a nice life that wasn't competitive.
Absolutely. And he'd actually gone to your neighbour, I think, for your neighbour's wife to hack around and have. And I think we went home and then about 2 weeks later, William said, if you still want him, you can.
I remember Charlie ringing me up and saying, it's Justine's birthday. But he probably was.
Christmas. It was Christmas.
Oh, Christmas,
yes.
That's right. He couldn't find a Christmas present in the local town in
Swaffham. We had him, it must be just a couple of months before Christmas, and I was riding, and I have to say, you've done an amazing job on him because, oh my God, that horse is so well schooled. He is just heavenly. And I fell in love with him. And I was meant to be selling him, and I just kept thinking, I don't want him to.
Oh, that's right, you had him, of course.
Yes,
you did. Yeah, you had him.
And Charlie kept saying, what do you want for Christmas? And I said, I just want Mazette. And he was going, well, I'm not buying him Mazette. And then eventually Charlie said to me, Justine, you're not having him. I've spoken to William. William's having him back. Donald's going to jump him. And I'm thinking, I don't think Donald jumps anyway.
No, he doesn't.
And I was thinking, this all sounds very fishy.
Charlie's fob story.
And then I woke up on Christmas morning and he'd got a ribbon round his neck.
Oh.
And he is just the most. I did a team chase on him yesterday. He's just, he loves his hunting. Loves his hunting.
Now, what I love, I mean, for listeners out there, Justine is a little barking mad. Is that fair to say that?
Well, it does say that on my Instagram account. It's completely bonkers.
Yes, she is completely bonkers.
Yeah.
And you and Charlie set up the Nar Valley Bloodhounds. So you, at home, Charlie is obviously a very busy farmer.
Yes.
He, and you have the blood, so you've got 15, 19?
19 bloodhounds. Yes.
And you know all of their names?
I know all of their names.
They look the same to me.
They do. Well, when you get, it's a bit like all your horses. You know, if you've got, sometimes, at one stage you had a yard full of bay horses and they all look the same to me, but you obviously know them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they to the outsider, they look the same, but they're very different. So we hunt what it's called a clean boot. So that means
you don't get your boots dirty.
No, it means we don't lay a trail. If you run, if you came and ran for us,
I wouldn't be doing any running.
well, you get in the trailer with the hounds and they sniff you up for about 5 minutes. And then you set off running and we give you about a 15, 20 minute
I think I would need an hour and a half head start.
And then they chase you and catch you. And we follow on horseback.
And then once they catch the prey, do they just lick them to death?
Yeah, you pretty much get slobbered on and a very wet, sloppy kiss. Yeah, they're as soft as mud. But yes, so yes, it is like a madhouse.
And anyone that wants to look, because you've now started a vlog.
I've started off about the journey with because when we started the Bloodhounds, we obviously needed more horses, and I went from having 2 horses to 8. And so I started off the vlog. I was teaching a girl that was an influencer. I think you'd call her an influencer. And she said, you ought to vlog this. Your life is bonkers. It's hilarious. So I started doing that. And then I obviously got Brody. And now I've done my journey with Brody. I mean, I've got a lovely crowd of people that follow me. And the comments are just... And most of them are women and men, but who say, oh, my God, you've inspired me to take up riding again, and I've started competing, and it is lovely.
And then what got you into goats? Because
I've always wanted a goat.
You've got goats.
I've got 2 goats, and I've got 2 turkeys now who are called Rodney and Pete, but they are girls.
Right, okay.
And
so why the Rodney and Pete?
I don't know. It just happened, really. And they are hilarious. They follow me around all the time and come and sit while I'm mucking out. And the goats live with Mazette. They sleep in his stable. And they've got a window ledge, and he looks out the window, and they're on the window, and they lick his neck and chew his mane, which is less than ideal, but he's not got much of a forelock. But yeah, they are. I've always wanted a goat.
It is a complete wacky,
yes,
funny farm.
She used to come in the house. And
Geraldine, was Geraldine a boy?
No, she was a girl. She was a girl.
So finally, you had Brody.
Yeah.
You know, you've had 3 kids. You've had this bonkers life.
Yeah.
You were obviously very serious when you were competing when you were at Roos and when you were younger. Some mental sort of... Well, not change of heart, or what, it must have been tough to get back into that sort of...
Yes, I think I'd had quite a few injuries. I'd broke my pelvis and I've done damage to my back. So physically, I'm a bit broke. Put on weight with the menopause, shall I say?
That dreaded word.
Yeah, and...
It's only nature.
I wanted to compete. I mean... It's quite scary and daunting coming back to it. I mean, the sport has evolved a lot. I mean, I don't want to take away from what I achieved, but it's even harder now. It's much more...
It's more technical, isn't it?
Much more technical. I mean, I found that the biggest thing and the area that has surprised me the most. So I got Brody and started competing, and I've loved it. I think... having 1 horse actually is a real treat now. And he's such a lovely horse. And because the children have grown up, I've got time to have all the lessons and really I wanted to do it properly. I wanted to do him properly. The biggest challenge is sitting trot. I can't do sitting trots. Oh my God. My back is so bad.
Can I just say, it was a little bit of a challenge for you back when
Well, exactly. Thank you. Yes, I know. And it's even more of a challenge now. The first time I did 2-star short on Brody, where I had to wear tails and do sitting trot in the test, I came out and I cried for about 5 minutes.
Because you were in so much pain.
I was in so much pain. It was such a big step for me. That was the hardest thing, was putting myself out there, because I knew I wasn't looking very pretty. And it was just the relief and the achievement that I'd managed to get back to a stage where I could wear tails and do sitting trot. And I know it sounds silly, but, it was a huge achievement.
The jumping bit's the easy bit, isn't it?
Well, absolutely. And the other thing that was so surprising is when we did a novice, the height was exactly the same. Years ago when I was doing it before, the height was exactly the same, but you didn't have a double of arrowheads in those days. You didn't have a double of corners in a novice. You wouldn't really get that until a big, decent intermediate. And that caught me out actually a bit, because I hadn't done that preparation with Brodie. And I remember I went for a lesson with wonderful chap, Simon Grieve, and he really helped me practice over that and actually realising the importance of that technical aspect of it that really wasn't there when I was competing before. So that's been a big learning curve. And I just think with horses, you're always learning, aren't you?
Yeah.
And it's such a privilege to do horses. It really is. And I love getting to know them, and building up that relationship is just fabulous. Yeah, and it's been challenging as an older lady.
Well, we're not quite as brave, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm brave. Or sometimes do we question whether our reactions are quite as quick?
I think that was the thing. I was surprised that I've always been quite a brave rider. That wasn't ever really my negative. My negative was my technical ability, I think, and the finesse. But I've been surprised that that element hasn't waned, but it is that a bit of self-doubt that I think kicks in when you get a bit older. You start, like you say, questioning your
I must admit,
reactions and
also I find like I'm really lucky because I've got the most lovely arena at home.
Yeah.
With mirrors one end, and I have to say I really want to take the mirrors down, because every time I go past the mirror it just reminds me of how old I look.
I don't
And
have mirrors.
I know, and I want to get rid of them, because the mirrors are a great training aid to see whether you're straight, and you head towards the mirror and you can sideways on, you can see the outline of the horse if you've not got anyone on the ground. So they are a great training aid.
Yes, but
if your eye is drawn to you or to me, I just go, God,
who is that old woman trotting past? That's what I think. Or I generally think, good God, you need a better sports bra. Especially when I'm trying my sitting trot.
You've always had big boobies, Justine.
Oh God, I know.
But I have too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but that's been challenging.
That is our handicap.
Exactly. Yeah, finding a tailcoat that fits, that's been challenging.
So if you could, the listeners or the people watching, what would be a sort of key piece of advice for people, the way they handle or look after and how they look after horses?
I think that the thing that I've learnt the most is get to know your horse and actually ask yourself, what am I doing as a person that might be making the horse do that? Because I think often, they're a big animal. Sometimes people tend to think, that the horse is doing it because of this. But invariably, it's what we do and how we interact. And I think it's really getting to know that horse and asking. A great thing that Tristan says, be horse curious. He's horse curious. Be curious of yourself and what you're doing that may be implementing or impacting on the horse.
And that is an area where I find it quite interesting, because obviously we've had some jockeys. Last week we had Bob Champion. And with the jockeys, it's very different because they don't really get the chance to have that one-to-one with the horse.
No.
And I do think from that interaction with them, you really get to know them as individuals, and you learn how to read them, and you just know how they look. And I think animals, not just horses, because I can see in your completely nutty, barking way that your geese love you, your goats love you.
Yeah.
You speak goat language, you speak geese language, you speak
turkey language.
Oh, sorry, turkey language. You gobble away.
You've definitely got to cut that bit out.
Okay, and you barking mad with your bloodhounds. Yeah, you're quackers with your ducks.
But I think that's it, though. It's building a relationship with an animal that is so special, isn't it? I mean, I remember having a conversation with you about how do you teach people feel, and it's really difficult. But you said to me that actually be curious about yourself. Think about what is it that I'm feeling. When you sit on a horse, and I'll say that now. I've used that many times when I teach somebody that I don't know particularly well. And I'll say, right, when you're walking around, really think about what you're feeling. Think about whether that horse feels tense or anxious, and because feel is just one of our biggest tools, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know.
But it's allowing us time to feel.
Yeah. And I mean, Ruth again taught us
Yeah.
that immensely. It was, you know, she was so particular about us sitting level and even and
straight.
Yeah. It was
very, very lucky we both were to have the years.
Absolutely.
Very, very special days.
And a lot of fun.
Certainly. Yeah. And as people can tell, we had a lot of fun.
We did have a lot of fun.
Yeah. And we've had good careers, so we clearly haven't been alcoholics all our life. We
Some
just
better
had
than
the odd
others.
fun night.
Exactly.
You know, life's about having fun sometimes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And thank you, Justine, because we've had a lot of laughs.
We have. Thank you too. I've always a giggle.
And again, I'm sorry that actually we wouldn't have had time for Tristan on the show.
No, we wouldn't. But
we didn't need you, Tristan. If you listen and watch this pod, we did not need you.
No, but can I come back when he's here just so that I get kudos for my kids?
Probably. I'm sure we could. Charlotte, producer, yes.
Fine.
Yes.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Justin, I know we could go on for hours and hours and hours chatting and recollecting memories from the past, but I really appreciate you coming on the show. I think what's really, really great is that actually quite a few people sent in messages to have you as a guest because obviously they're following you on Instagram.
Marvellous.
So it was suggested, and as soon as Charlotte, the producer, mentioned your name, I thought, she's the girl. She's the girl, and we could have a lot of fun chatting about.
Well, thank you very much for
many
having
memories.
me. I've loved every minute of it. It's been great.
Just as a reminder, Tristan and I will be doing a live audience on the 17th of May at Royal Windsor Horse Show. There'll be a 20% discount code, and you will find it in the podcast description. If you've loved us talking horse, make sure you join our equestrian community by subscribing so you never miss an episode, and we have got plenty more episodes to come.
And leave a review because everybody loves to read the reviews.
And also suggestions. As you have done, we have Justine. So do put in your request and we'll see what we can do.
So join the conversation because we've got so much more talk horse to do, or horse talk to do.
Very good. Bye for now.
Bye.